Okay, we're live.
Ready?
Live.
Are you steady? We live.
We live.
Uh-oh.
We're
We gonna
live.
wait for the folks to come on in.
We're gonna wait for a few
Gonna
seconds.
wait for the folks to come on in.
Gonna wait. Gonna wait. Gonna wait. Gonna wait. Gonna wait. Yeah. So if you are watching, I know there's a few people that are already on the YouTube situation. Give us a holler on the comments section. Um, okay, I was like,
Yes.
Dane, Figueroa, Edidi. Okay, I was
I
like,
was texting you. I was because I was like, oh, I figured out what pieces I was gonna do
why you
tonight.
texting
Because
someone?
like normally this, well, huh?
I said you texting someone you looking
What
at. What,
happened?
you texting someone you looking at?
No, because well, I know because normally what would happen, right, is that because we would be doing pieces from like a bunch of our books, right? So it's
Yeah.
like the pieces that you can pick, right, that's in complement, that's in conversation with, etc., is larger. So like because we're doing pieces from just one book, right? Like from one book each, right? I had to like be like, okay, well, which one would make sense to say which, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. Um, yeah, so to folks that are just joining us and logging on as we are just now getting started on our situation, we're really grateful for you to come through to check out our event tonight, which is two Black trans authors take on or take down white supremacy. We'll be doing a release situation for White Folks Be Trippin' and Ethnography Through Poetry and Prose, as well as Infrastructure of a Nation. Yeah, my name is Mase III. I use he, him as pronouns. And over here we have who?
I am Lady Dane Figueroa Edidi. She, her, hers, honey.
Yes.
It's up on the screen, I think. I think it's up on the screen.
It's up on the screen. It's up on the screen. It's up on the screen. Yes. And so,
Screen.
yes. Oh, thank y'all to everyone that's come through. Thank y'all. We're
Hey
so
y'all. I
we're
see y'all.
excited.
Hey
Yeah.
family.
So, and so what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a couple things. Is we're gonna be spitting some poems. We're gonna be sharing some of our essay things. We're going to be asking each other questions because we like to ask each other questions. I don't know if y'all know, but we talk almost every day. So like if y'all see us like working together and stuff like that, it's because we actually just genuinely need to find reasons to work together because we talk to each other all the fucking time. And so you gotta like if you're gonna do that, you might as well also be productive at the same time. you know,
Agreed.
agree.
Agreed.
Like you might as well do work with people that you like. And yeah, and so I was asked lovingly today to go first because Dane Figueroa Didi, I don't know if y'all also know this, if y'all have ever seen us perform together before. Oh, you can bite your lip and do whatever you want to. But so Dane Figueroa Didi, who is my friend, my sister, my colleague, someone whom I admire, a literal goddess on this planet, all these things. She also does not like to go first. And so I am sometimes lovingly asked, about 95% of the time that we perform together, to go first. Yeah. And so I'm going to do that. So thank you all for coming in advance. Yeah. And so also just to let y'all know, if there's anything that y'all like, so we're gonna put, if you want to talking every for years. We literally talk every day for years, like for years. Okay, we don't even talk for like 30 minutes. We talk for like hours at a time. It's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to
I
literally talk, actually. So we
I
just
know. On my date nights, I'd be like, hold on now. I'm with my man. I can't. I said, hold on. We got, it can only be a 15-minute conversation because I got to go get back to my boo. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. So sometimes I gotta share her with her little man's, but that's okay. That's okay. It's cool. I tell him hi too. I tell him hi too. Okay. um, yeah, and so if you like anything from our books, of course you can feel free to pick up the books. So I'm gonna put on the screen so you can get White Folks Be Trippin' on my website, which is www.jmase3rd.com. You can get Infrastructure of a Nation over on Dane's website at ladydanefe.com. So you can check that out. And we will have places for you to tip us and stuff. if y'all like to tip people. If you like to tip Black trans people, we like to be tipped. I don't know if y'all know, it's a pandemic outside, okay? And
yes, God, come on.
Looks a little different. So yeah, so I'm gonna put all these things up while we're each reading. I'm gonna put mine up first because I'm going first. So I'm gonna read first and maybe get tipped first. Hi, Dane. Hi. Dane's like looking all shady. Okay, so I'm gonna start this piece.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. You listen. Let me tell you something. I thought we was gonna have a Patty versus Gladys type of verses tonight, but you are serving Brandy versus Monica right now, and
But
I love all four of them. Let me just say that.
Am I Brandy or Monica though in that situation? You don't care. I'm Monica.
Oh my gosh, y'all listen, we're gonna have a fun night tonight, y'all. We are gonna have a fun night. So thanks for joining us. Go ahead, Mase. Go ahead. All right, I'm putting my microphone on mute. I'm putting my microphone on mute.
Okay. And so this is the intro poem to White Folks Be Trippin. It's very, very short, so it's a micro poem, okay? White folks be like scared of saying the wrong thing. Black folks be like scared of dying for being Black, yet we be like trying to have conversations like this shit is normal. So that's first piece. Also, as a side note, you know, just because we're online, sometimes you got to like massage people into the process. We like when people like, you can do an applause in the comments. You can do like a thank you, you can do whatever. Yeah, we like that shit. We like that shit. Okay. And because that piece is so
and hey, loves, I see y'all in the comment section. Yeah. I see y'all. Hey.
Thanks, y'all. Yes. And so this next piece I'm going to do is of COVID masks and quarantine, or fuck Ben Franklin. And so at least through my pieces for tonight, there's a few things. So I'm going to switch between the poems, some I don't know if it's micro memoir or whatever the fuck. Like, I don't necessarily, you know, no one really needed to know what genre they were writing in when they were kids learning how to write. You just kind of wrote. So I just kind of write to whatever. But yeah, so poems and some micro memoir stuff. And I'm going to give y'all some assignments because we're going to do some exercises together because I think that books should be collaborative, right? But so this is a specific poem, like I said, of COVID masks and quarantine, or fuck Ben Franklin. His crusty post read kind of like a movie that only incels would watch. It said something to the effect of, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety, quote by Ben Franklin. Or at least that's according to the white boy on Facebook who wasn't perceptive enough to cite the irony of using a slave master's words to defend human autonomy. White boys are funny like that. They tell jokes sometimes about our existence, but they state it as a matter of fact, like matter is a fact based on the observer's perception. Like they don't think you or I have the capacity to observe, like I am just a state of matter to be acted upon or observed. They build shrines to their forefathers with our hands, and with just a slip of tongue and slab of concrete, they are no longer warmongers or colonizers or rabid cave beasts. They are free thinkers that somehow meditated their way up the food chain, because how dare I, as a state of matter, observe them as a matter of fact, being anything else but find examples of monuments to dead masters' egos in alabaster stone wastelands, free their haircuts from oppression, free them from their need to protest, from their need to wave their guns, free them from accountability. They aren't looking for justice, just the right to preside over the world again, unquestioned.
Word. Did you see that motherfucker in the news? That motherfucker, the attorney general gonna talk about some motherfucker trying to compare basically like staying in the house, right? To like keep everybody safe, right? For public health, for your own health. He tried to compare that shit to enslavement. And I said, these motherfuckers, and then I got mad at everybody else who had told us when he was confirmed that he was going to somehow be different and not be motherfucking authoritarian, even though like he already had said that.
Mm-hmm. It's, you know, I mean, I think that small, like, just window of a critical thought, I think I'm watching, like, just right now, kind of go down the tubes. Like, I think that before these last few years, there was a time before 2014 that I actually believed that critical thought was a common experience around politics, around the ways people engaged, and just knowing the difference between I'm doing something to save lives versus I'm doing something, you know, I'm getting a restriction because I'm enslaved. Like that's ridiculous. That's fucking ridiculous. But I didn't see that, so I'm gonna have to check that out later in the world.
Yeah, it pissed me off earlier this week. Venus said, "We have an attorney general question mark." I don't remember these people's names. Wow.
That's the best. Okay.
Well, I mean, like, what do you call an attorney general in an authoritarian system? Lapdog of the dictator, like, you know.
Listen, I don't know. Yeah, actually, that brings up another complicated thought that I know we're gonna talk a little bit today about voting and stuff like that. That's gonna come up because it's September and election time. We'll kind of get into the complicated messiness of that and all of our thoughts.
I'm doing a piece on voting later, y'all. Got a piece about it.
I am not doing a piece on voting. I just want y'all to know that. But like, there's lots of different fun things happening. Yeah. So, are y'all ready for another poem and another poet? Are y'all ready for the next poet to the stage? Y'all ready? Y'all look ready because I'm seeing all the stuff. Okay.
Right, people is living. All right. Well, I'm just gonna do a quick one. You know, I'm gonna do a quick one. Some people have probably heard me do this before. So Infrastructure of the Nation. You know, we're gonna talk a little bit more about, you know, the books throughout the day, but it is you know, it is a selection of poems and prose and ponderings on revolutions and rebirth and remembering how to love, right? And I wanted to have it done by July 4th, but you know, a girl got busy, so, and I have learned.
Did you tell them that we were competing? You didn't tell them we were competing, right?
No, I didn't say that, but you can tell the story about it.
Okay, so like I have to tell y'all this, right? Because Dane, like, if y'all know Dane has 13 fucking books. That's fucking ridiculous. Dane is like 13. She started publishing what, like 7 years ago?
2013, I think. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's hard to perform sometimes next to a person who's like pumping in all this work and you're like, oh my God, you know, when do you sleep? And so this summer we had a competition about who was going to get done a book faster. And I got mine done faster. So I just had to say that. I was really proud of myself. Okay. But Dane's the person that gets to do shit like that because you're like, you know, she kind of inspires you to kind of keep up with the times and the things that are kind of going on. Yes.
I was like, right, Venus, because I just was like, I said, boo, I'm real busy and I'm sleepy and stuff. And I said, and Mase was like, I got it, don't worry.
I'm a Taurus, y'all. I'm a Taurus. I do not take competition lightly. Like it doesn't matter if you're my best friend. Like I'm going to beat you. Like if it's a competition, I have to win. Like that's the world we live in. Okay, that's it. Okay.
And I said, I got some things to do. So yeah. But this piece I'm about to do, I've done it before. I think it was you, me. I don't know who else was a part of that evening of poets. It was a bunch of Black trans poets, and I did it before. And so, Venus, I do sleep. She said I don't sleep. So I'm gonna. So tonight, I'm gonna start off with that one. It's called A Custom. I wrote it. I can tell you why I wrote it later. Okay, custom. You can probably guess. We have grown so accustomed to Black pain. We have deified our tears, making them the only God to receive our prayers. We call our sorrow virtuous while paying no tribute to it beyond the vacuous offering of the vanity that is white guilt. And so I ask you, what of Black rage? What of its power? What of machete and pen? What of musket and movement? What of shout and song? What of incantations, invocations? What of rainbow skirts twirling with lightning? Of throat that sings down chariots from on high? Of retribution? Does its war cry deserve any less reverence? Does its billow deserve any less dignity than our laments? Does its flame deserve any less than fire? We've grown so accustomed to Black pain, but what of rage? That thing that feeds change, true rage, righteous rage that refuses to turn back on its own, that would dance atop oppression with laughter on tongue. What of screams that do not catch in our throats? What of horns birthed in rebellion that cause the walls of oppression to come tumbling down? What of these things? Are they not sacred when it is we who are indeed divine? So are the things we feel in rightness not sacred too? We have grown so accustomed to Black pain that we cradle it as if it were the only thing to feel. We hold it precious like babies lost to time, like a child lost to cruelty's clan. We place a wreath of grief upon its head and call it holy. But what of tomorrow? Unburdened with yesterday, or rather unburdened with guilt for feeling rage? What of words that do not deserve to be taken back? What of bridges made from fire? What of the ancient things we know bring us peace? What of my people, my beautiful people, my righteous people, my sacred people, my ancestor people, my future people, my holy people, my earth people, my moon people, my sun people, my fire people, my water people, my air people, the storm riders and star people, Black people? What, my people, do we do with our discarded child, Black rage? So yeah, that's, that's a custom. That's my piece of custom.
Yes.
Yeah, I wrote it. I wrote it because I felt like what I continue to hear from the media, what I continue to hear from Republicans and conservatives and liberals, what I continue to hear from white people, what I continue to hear from people who are invested in respectability politics was this idea that somehow we didn't have the right to fight back against a system that literally was attempting to kill us. And go ahead.
Oh no, I had a question for you that I think I already know the answer to. Not I think I know the answer to. For clarity, as we're kind of moving through this process, and as you're even just sharing this piece, yeah. So when you're talking about seeing those things, do you consider yourself tied to any political party?
Do I consider myself tied to any political party? This is the thing, right? Is that when people say, "What are you?" right? I say I'm a democratic socialist, right? But I think ultimately, the reality is that I don't know if I'm doing that piece tonight or not. But I understand, is that poem in one of your books? If so, which one, please? Oh, so everything that I'm reading tonight is from Infrastructure of a Nation, which you can actually get from my website. So this is the thing, the word that I don't really identify with that you said, Mase, when you asked me the question, is tied.
Yeah.
Right? Because then that means that somehow there is some kind of investment in or whatever. And I think that even when I am engaging, I had a life as a political commentator at one point in time. I think that even when I'm engaging political, when I'm engaging, for example, the Democratic Party, right? Which typically I when I vote, I typically vote Democrat. I also understand that this system is not where salvation lies, right? And that like that I basically just do like, you know, what they say, the cost benefit analysis, where I'm like, okay, is this particular person who's on this particular ballot at this time, are they going to buy a little bit more time while we do the work that we're going to do, right? So that we're not always having to be in crisis mode, even though I understand, like, when have black trans people in this country ever not, you know what I mean? But what I do know is this. But what I do know is this. That orange motherfucker can't be president for 4 more years. Because what I know about that is that it's not just going to be, it wouldn't just be one or two people.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? It wouldn't just be so I will just say that. That's where I'll leave it there with that one. Yeah. But as far as tied to, I mean, fuck all them motherfuckers. Fuck all of them, right? Fuck all of them. But I do know that they're like a little bit more time with one than the other. Right. Because the Republicans ain't shit. So I want to say that too, because, you know, sometimes they be trying to use fucking sound bites. Y'all ain't motherfucking shit. And when y'all be talking about some how did our party get here, motherfucker, your party been here. This is your party. You are the party of motherfucking gerrymandering and no morals. Talking about you pro-life, but you motherfucking co-sign on babies in motherfucking cages and motherfucking child. That's a whole nother story. Okay, so yeah, that's what I'll say about that. So they can't be using what I say for no motherfucking soundbite against no motherfucker. No, not Republican Party. Fuck you bitches. Y'all awful. Y'all let that motherfucking man. Y'all could impeach that motherfucker. Fuck y'all. Go ahead. Okay, Mase. All right. What's up next, boo?
So what's up next? Right. And so just to kind of reiterate, so the person that said is that poem in your books, of course, as Dane said, all the things that she's reading tonight are from Infrastructure of a Nation. All the things I'm reading tonight are from White Folks Be Trippin and Ethnography Through Poetry and Prose. Dane, because you talked about like where your book kind of came from and what was sort of inspiring you, what I'll say is for myself, I think that race in public spaces, especially in books, 99% of the material is geared towards white people, and it's about how white people feel about race or getting white people to feel a certain type of way. And I just actually don't give a shit about bettering white people. I care about, do I as a black or brown person, do I as a black person first, right? Do I as a black person, as a black trans person, have resources to allow myself to heal from the trauma that I have to absorb being in white spaces, or being like, even if I'm not in white spaces, having to absorb white bullshit and white supremacy culture, right? Because even if we are not in white spaces, we're still absorbing all that bullshit. Me, White Folks Be Trippin is a book that specifically has like different little resource tools, like just like different like fill in the blank tools, in addition to just like me sharing some observations through poems, through micro memoir, all that kind of stuff. It's a place to be honest about your experiences. So I think that for me, every time I write something, I don't really, it's not enough for me to share about who I am. Like, I like myself. I like people talking about myself sometimes, right? But the reality is I want to create a space in which we as a community get to share back and forth our ideas, right? And so that's sort of what this is. Yeah, and so what I'm going to give y'all is your first writing exercise. Right? Are you excited? Do you like writing exercises? Do you, back there behind the screen, you like writing exercises? Because you're going to get one today. Inshallah. Okay?
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to them? You talking to us all?
All of you all. All of you in this wonderful land of the internet, we are going to do writing exercises today. Yes. Yeah, so I'm going to read a couple paragraphs and then I'm going to give you your assignment. Okay. All right. And so this is just a quick segment from this is a quick segment from a rant about white power structures disguised as do-gooders, featuring ambiguous power guys. Let's again, and white folks be tripping. If you've been paying attention, you know that white folks have a lot of motherfucking audacity. They treat black, brown, indigenous folks as an afterthought, even when they state their intentions are to work towards racial justice. We are their muses, but rarely their leaders. Another thing I learned is that white folks will spend way more time trying to bait you into circular conversations about race that go nowhere and wonder why you. They will underpay you, call you combative when you speak up about the racism you're experiencing, and white tears you under the table. Well, damn. Now I'm imagining all the places white folks have cried in my presence at work. Not because what I did or said, mind you, but because they have unresolved shit they ain't worked out yet in their spirits or with their ancestors. I have had white folks cry after I told them a meeting space was just for black, brown, and indigenous folks. I have had white folks cry because I told them their thoughts about Trayvon Martin were irrelevant. I've had white folks cry because I said something they said was racist. I've had white folks cry because they have never seen The Wiz, which, truthfully, is the only valid reason to cry in this pile. I've had white folks cry because I was held up by the police, and even though they personally took it upon themselves to forgive the police, it was very emotional for them to know what I had just gone through on their watch. White folks love using black folks to access their own emotions. White tears is a way that they pull up all that trapped guilt like a loogie they are about to spit out. Yes, white tears are gross. List all the ways you've seen white tears waste the time, energy of, and or be weaponized against black people specifically, right? So in the chat, I want you to list the ways that you've seen white tears waste the time, energy of, and or be weaponized against black people specifically.
I'm like, child, when haven't we?
Every fucking day. Every single fucking day. Every single fucking day. Yeah, and so I think,
Baby.
yeah. Yeah, and I think I think for me, the ways that I tend to deal with stuff is primarily through humor things. I think that's how I deal with my stress and my anxiety. I think I can solve all problems through sarcasm. So I don't know if anybody else is like that. Please let us know in the comments if you too do that through. If you feel like sarcasm can solve all the world problems that you might have right now. But yeah, I think that there's like I think the most
Somebody said, I don't think we have enough time. Right.
happy headed
Correct.
Jojoba. Thank you so
Correct.
much for coming. And yes, we don't have enough time. Um, yeah, I think the most absurd for me was even just that place around the police because we've talked about this I think at length about when I was at that event and got held up by the police with a few other friends of mine. And just the level of tears that white people had for that day. I was like, do y'all think that I got to cry? I didn't get to cry, right? Like I have to sit there when I'm dealing with whether it's a security guard that's a little high and mighty that day, whether it's a police officer, whether it's have you, I have to actually have enough forethought and calmness in my voice, in the ways that I move, so that I can come back and have and be able to tell you the story, right? But white folks cry so easily about stuff that we have to deal with every day, and so I always just think about what does it mean when white spaces often will rob black and brown people of our own emotions, right? So like will rob us of our emotions and never allow us to have our own, right? So I think a lot about when you watch movies and you hear, and maybe it's a movie and there's nobody black in the movie at all, ever, right? There's a completely white cast. And when it gets emotional, when there's maybe a love scene or when there's, when someone dies or, when someone's trying to be cool, right? All of a sudden you hear this black soundtrack to stuff because we give them our mere presence, our ability to articulate, to think about, our emotions gives them some sort of other kind of pleasure, which is another type of ownership, right? Yeah, white people
Yeah.
trying to. Yes. I've had white people cry over that stuff. Like, why? Like, you're calling me. I think just everyone should be able to say whatever words they want to say. It's like, seriously? Like, there's a lot of shit I don't waste my energy on, right? but white folks will really waste.
It's like, do you? Well, give me reparations. If you think so, then give me reparations, right? Like, if you really think that that's what people should be able to do, then pay me. And when I say pay me, I mean move out of your house, give your house to Black and Indigenous folks, give up your salary, all of that shit, right? Because like all of these motherfucking illusionary this shit that they say, oh, everybody should be able to say whatever they want. Everybody should be able to, and I'm like, but you not willing, white person, you not willing to even do the things that it would take to make a world in which, even though still no,
right.
even though still no,
yeah,
you could possibly say that. Yeah. Even though still no. Like, child, please. Always trying to have ownership of some shit. Cracker equals, yeah. Cracker.
Yes, people try to convince us the same stuff. Telling a white person they're racist is to them the worst thing you can say. Seems like racist is right. Yeah, so most definitely I think that's also the thing. It's like, I think that white supremacy culture is also, again, that place of tricking you into this, again, like I even said in this little piece, like the circular conversation. So in white supremacy culture, the idea of words or the thoughts behind words or all that kind of stuff is the same as feeling the actual violence that goes along with it. And so just having to explain to someone, it's not like if I was just called nigga, if that was it in my lifetime, that would actually be fine. But it's that nigga is tied to a whole host of experiences, whole legacy of violence, whole legacy of stuff. It's like, you're not just saying nigga, you're never just saying nigga, right? Like that's not actually the case, right? You're tying that to a bunch of different types of violence in which I don't actually ever get to react. I don't ever actually get to respond. I don't get to have autonomy of my body, of my life, of my worthiness, right? Right, which is there's not a comparison. There's never ever been a comparison, and there can't be, right? And I think that we, especially as Black folks, oftentimes there's spaces in which we will have that conversation with white people for some reason. We'll actually waste our energy because we get tricked into that too, right? We get tricked into wasting our energy and our livelihoods trying to make white people better, right? It's like you actually can't make people better that don't see you as human or don't value you.
For free?
Not possible.
For free?
Especially not for free.
For free? Over here, you better pay me.
Micah says, white person saw me get harassed and almost physically assaulted by a white cis man and did nothing. They came to me after the fact and wanted to cry about how watching me almost get assaulted affected them so much. Yeah. Like you actually deal with the brunt of the actual experience, and them watching vicariously, right, is somehow equal, right? It's like when we're watching, even this idea of white people sharing all the different police assaults that happen, all this kind of stuff, because they're trying to access their emotions, right? So they're like there's some stuff in there to me. It's just like of being so disconnected. You again using other people to feel, right? Using other people to sense and to sit in your body, right? That vicariousness of that is very vicious and kind of keeps me up, definitely.
It feels parasitic. Yes. It feels like a parasite.
Yes. Yeah. Listen.
Like I was just thinking about sci-fi, right? Like.
Listen.
Okay. All right. Let me read this next piece.
Yes. Oh wait, can I read this last?
Let me read this next piece. Yeah, child.
Racism about taking someone else's power and autonomy away, and then yet still play the victim when called in it, which reinforces their grip in the power dynamic. Yeah. So most definitely, like just like that.
Correct.
Yeah, even just acting like we're equal when you clearly have the reins, right? Like just like what is this? What does this even mean? Yeah, and so with that, we're gonna move into this next piece. We're gonna have if you like the pieces that you're hearing, please check out the please check out the books that we're sharing in the world. But coming back to the stage, we have the lovely, the amazing, the talented, my homie friend, sister goddess queen, the lovely Lady Dane, Figueroa, Edidi.
You are so silly. Yeah, with that said, right, like I've also been thinking a lot about pleasure, right? About love, about sex, about joy. and about what does it look like to, or I should say, what is the experience of actually like being in romantic love, right? I was going to say entanglement, but that's different. Jada. Entanglement with August. But in a, in a partnership, in a loving relationship, right? In a sexual relationship with someone who is invested in liberation, right? Who's invested in your liberation, who's invested in my liberation, who's invested in the liberation of your peoples, you know what I mean? And so I think I'm gonna read this piece. I kind of, Abby Lincoln, she sings this song and she talks something about, it's kind of inspired by, I did this piece called This Bitter Earth over at Theater Alliance. I did the choreography and intimacy choreography for it. And my brother Otis Ramsey directed it. And he was talking about this Abby Lincoln song. I can't remember what song it was, but one of the lines essentially, right, is that like the world is burning, will you hold my hand, right? And so I thought about how so often in certain movement spaces that are supposed to be about, dismantling white supremacy, that those spaces oftentimes are also still highly transphobic. And it's like, how the fuck does that work, right? Like, how the fuck does that work? And so, and how there are certain folks who want access to Black trans people's, romantic selves, simply for, and there are cis people who believe that Black trans people only exist for their pleasure and their enjoyment, right? And so it's like, that shit is, oh, thank you, Venus. Venus said, it's called The World is Falling Down. Thank you, boo. I love me some Abby Lincoln. And that, Black trans people, as we continue to fight, as we continue to dismantle this shit, I don't know who needs to hear this today, but you are deserving of being in relationship with someone who is invested in liberation, in your liberation, who is invested in a world where you do not have to fear anything, period. And so I wrote this piece thinking about all of those things. So I'll read it. It's called Will You Love Me? And or Who You Make Love To Is Political. Mase, can you still see me? Because I'm reading from the document. Mase? Hello?
I'm sorry, I was on mute, love. Yes, I can see you. I can see sorry.
Sorry. Okay, awesome.
You can't see the top. So, okay, back on mute.
Got you. All right, here we go. Will you love me as the world burns? Ragnarok opens its mouth and the twilight seems due. What age of man is this that it feels none of the lessons learned were in fact such? I gaze in the distance at rolling hills that teem with destruction, and the wave of tears have gathered thus. Will you love me? Here amongst the inevitable. They say some will survive. They say Eden can come again, but first the fall. What if there are not enough ships for the rapture, and some people were warrior gods and angel generals all along, sacrificing themselves so that the rest may be spirited away safely? Battled has awakened them, swords and herb ready, summoning, invoking revelations. Will you love me? Here, now, in these tears and what is uncertain, and the need to cling to flesh, and the now, this second, this minute, this hour, this year. When we wonder if perhaps some people are also the ships, You say you will. You say yes. And we take each other to the temple and become the holiest of holies. And you pray to the goddess in me. I reply, love me, kiss me. Yes, God, now like that again. Yes, God, hands, personhood pressed against one another again. Moans again, dreams again, wholly, fully, truthfully claim release. Now heaven moans again, God, again, God, again, God, love me again. And the day after, will you love me? As my throat readies its sword and my pen makes sharp its spell. Come, let us mount the war cries of liberation. Kiss me again. As our bodies ache to know one another before the battle, let us charge into time. And after, let us love each other back to life. There are many revelations, many raptures. Let us touch our flesh together to discern which one this is. Come. That's that one.
Yeah. Yes, I love what you said about, especially what you said about, you know, having a right to be loved by people who see your liberation. I think that's sort of similar to the ways that you phrased it. I can't remember the exact wording that you used. Yeah, and just like hearing this piece. Yeah, what role do you think that? What role do you feel like love has in liberation of Blackness and of Black trans people in particular?
Oh, I think love will lead you back. I think love. Oh God, that's why I want. I think that love. I feel like it's deeply important, right? I think that so many of the stories and so many of the the gods and the goddesses who within ancient stories, right, and ancestral stories talk about ordaining or creating or manifesting or being the patrons of or being the oftentimes have some form of love associated to their portfolio, right, to their godly portfolio. And so I think also that love and intimacy and pleasure and like that, like not just talking about romantic love in this moment, right? But like community can't exist without love. Liberation can't exist without love. Because what else is it that you're actually wanting to why are you still fighting? Is it just now the question is, right, are you actually fighting for liberation because you fighting for like liberation, I put quotes, because you actually just want to still keep the hierarchy, right, and you just move up on the ladder of the hierarchy?
Yeah.
Which is what we have experienced, I think, so often from certain Black cis men in the media who are celebrities, who be transphobic as fuck and thinking they doing something. Or are you invested in true liberation, which means that every human being, every person, every, even the earth, right? Even the earth, Mother Earth, is free from oppression and oppressive forces. So I think love, when you're rooted in love in those things, the wisdom and the clarity, and the willingness to heal, be accountable, etc., it works different. It activates different. It just operates different. Romantic love, I also think, is very important, right?
Definitely.
Now, huh? Would you say?
I said definitely. We're like, we're not gonna get
Yeah,
to. Yeah.
I think it's very important, right? But I think that like the thing about romantic love is that I think that some that's a whole nother podcast. I think that there are some folks I think that there are some folks who are not actually ready to do the work that I think that it takes to really cultivate those relationships. And what I mean by that, right, is I don't mean you just stay with somebody because I don't mean you Cardi being offset that shit, right? Right? That's not what I'm saying. Where you just stay in abusive situations and you know what I mean, just because it's supposed to be love. Because that's some bullshit that white supremacy taught us. That shit ain't right. I mean, like, you know, when you when you do something right that isn't major, but when you're not being thoughtful right about your partner, and your partner is like, oh, you not being thoughtful about this thing actually hurt me. When you're ready to be in relationship with somebody else, y'all can sit down and y'all can really actually right work through that.
Mm-hmm. Listen.
And let me be clear when I'm saying this. This is not that motherfucking patriarchal bullshit that we have been taught. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that patriarchal bullshit where these men can just go out and be hot fucking messes. And we supposed to all just sit around and take that shit. That's some motherfucking white supremacy shit. That ain't how this is supposed to work. People like to quote the motherfucking Bible. The Bible also say people got to be equally yoked, bitch.
Yeah, listen. Equally yoked. Equally yoked.
Equally. What
Yes.
the fuck they think that mean?
Okay.
And ain't no motherfucking cow pushing no carts here, bitch.
Ah, inshallah. Inshallah.
So you know that's that.
That's that on that. That's that on. Well, I love you, Dane Figueroa Edidi.
I love you too.
Oh my god, inshallah. Yeah, actually, this is a quick quote that came up for me in my book as we're kind of like moving forward in the world. Um, so the quote that came up when you were just saying that is, "Love black people more than you love virtue signaling." So love black people more than you love virtue signaling, right? Because a lot of people will, as you even talk about love and what that means, the an imagined love, right? Like, or the language of love, right? Like people learn the language of something without actually going through and saying, like, what does that mean? What does it mean to love black people? So in this time of white supremacy, of anti-black antagonism, of anti-trans antagonism, or of trans antagonism, all these different things, what does it mean to actually fully love up black folks and specifically black trans people and all that? Beyond just wanting to take pictures with black trans people, aside from wanting to like the photos and the music of black trans people, aside from like wanting to be seen as friends with or friendly to or in proximity to folks. Like there's so many different ways, especially right now that I know that black transness is hip in the media, right? There's like a way in which people talk about us like we're mythological beings, like we're unicorns or some shit, right? Without actually caring about if we survive, right? What's happening right now in the world.
Aside from just giving us your Instagram for a day.
Yes, aside from just giving us your Instagram for a day, all those different types of things, you know. And so we're seeing, so right now, even just the world is upending in so many different directions, So I'm thinking about You know, I'm wondering about Black trans folks that are in California right now. How are they surviving some of the fires, and how are people sort of like pouring into those folks who typically cannot access emergency services in the same kind of way on a regular day? That does not get better when an emergency happens, right? Like that actually gets worse and more exacerbated, right? I'm thinking about all the different folks that have been Black trans folks that have been without any kind of income before COVID, but certainly now during COVID, right? And how we're sort of pouring into folks, right? All those things, right? So aside from like retweeting a Black trans person today, how are you actually loving up on Black trans folks, right? Yeah, so it's time for me to do a poem. It's time for me to do a quick poem. I'm like, which one do I do? I guess I'll do this one because I said this in our outline. So I'm gonna stick to the outline. I'm gonna stick to the outline today. That's what we're doing. All right. And so this is just what? What you saying?
No,
What just?
I said I love this one.
Oh,
I
I
know
know.
which one you're about to do. I'm looking at the list.
Because I'm gonna do it. So I'm glad that you like it also as well. Inshallah. Thanks, Dane. Yeah, and so this is a poem. It's very simple. It's called White Folks Dancing in Their Natural Habitat. Yeah. This is a poem dedicated to white tears and to offbeat, awkward dancing that is unashamed of how much space it can truly take up. This poem is white, white like paper, white like the police officers watching the way I walk, white like university presidents, white like mayonnaise, white like the cast of Friends, white like bleach, white like appropriating slang from neighborhoods that they never even want to touch, white like a gay pride parade in Salt Lake City or a Seattle solstice, white like I just wanted to play devil's advocate for a second. This poem is Snow White. It quotes Disney movies and loves It's Some Damn Miley Cyrus. This poem wants you to teach it how to twerk. This poem has once dated a Black person and wants you to know it, especially after it has started sentences with phrases like, not to be racist, but this poem has a job at Bank of America or Amazon or maybe Apple with a 401k and thinks you need to pay for your own damn health care. Even though my Black ancestors paid for the building that its cubicle sits in with their lives, this poem wants to move to the city to rebel, but will move back to the suburbs when it starts making little haikus. This poem holds its arms up to blue ink after taking vacations on colonized land and says, look, I'm almost as dark as you. This poem just took a gap year. This poem shares YouTube videos of Robin DiAngelo talking about race, because white women talking about race are the only experts on race this poem will recognize. This poem is a Democrat, but has a few Republican friends just to be diverse. This poem loves the word diverse. This poem gets lonely because it's not sure if it has a culture. This poem takes no responsibility for your oppression because it's like not this poem's fault it was made on high-grade paper. This poem is vanilla, without all the complications of the middle passage that put that extract in your grandma's favorite recipe. This poem is Bugs Bunny circa 1965. This poem is deeply invested in anti-racism, unless that means it doesn't get to be in charge. This poem wants to talk about its pain with you, because it's like hard to be oppressive. This poem thinks Rachel Dolezal is a national treasure. This poem will want to process its feelings with you later after this poet is done. This poem refuses to acknowledge the color of the ivory paper that it's printed on. This poem agrees with your politics, but not your tactics. This poem wants you to know that hashtag all stanzas matter, and that we are all really just poems, whether we are sonnets or slam. It has a Bernie Sanders brand necktie and a Hillary Clinton decoupage on its nightstand. This poem is so white, it knows what decoupage means and believes that, yes, we can change the world one poem at a time, as long as white poems with the right politics get to hit the stage first.
I love that poem.
Thank you.
I love that poem.
Inshallah.
Child.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Speaking of white people,
Yeah.
We were talking one day and you made a joke, right? And you were like, a white woman with high ceilings. I don't know what we were talking
Listen,
about.
we
Uh,
was talking about some high ceilings that I was trying to get into, trying to qualify for some apartment with high ceilings. That's what I was trying to give white women with
and
high
I was,
ceilings.
and like I said to you, I said, Mase, you gonna use that for something? And you said no. And I said, okay, good, because I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna write a piece based off of that phrase.
listen, listen,
And
and
you were
you got
like, okay.
to listen.
So I'm gonna do it.
Good stuff. Because I do be trying to channel white women with high ceilings though every now and again. You know, I don't know if y'all know what white women with high ceilings looks like yet, but you're about to get really schooled on that by the lovely lady Dane Figueroa Edidi. And if you don't know, you know, you're gonna know. So we're gonna bring back to the stage the lovely, the white woman with the highest of ceilings, the lovely lady Figueroa Edidi.
Ciao, ciao. All right, y'all, here we go. So this piece is called, so every piece tonight, y'all, every piece that J. Mase III is doing, you can get from his new book, White Folks Be Trippin. You can buy that from his website.
And I just want to say, so both of our books will be up on Barnes & Noble and Amazon, all that stuff, like at some point soon. You know, we're not super excited about the Amazon piece, but the Barnes & Noble and all the other places, just, you know, the process is connected. We can't unlink the process. But yeah, also just to let y'all know, my book is on paperback and ebook. So if you're like, I really, you know, can't do the paperback right now as far as the COVID or just like the pricing, it is on ebook on my site too. So that's it.
I was gonna say, honey, listen, because coronavirus, that she's out there, trying it still. And then every piece that I'm going to do this evening will be is from my new book, Infrastructure of a Nation. So yeah, you can get that from my website. Obviously, it's up on the banner now. So here we go. A white woman with high ceilings. She wakes with a sigh. The ennui of monotonous living is her biggest concern. She will spin with her thoughts an excuse for why she has a right to her indignation. Her day spins, accompanied by the ghost of dying systems which dress her with pale hands and clothes gone with the wind. She washes her face in water stripped from the earth, pure as snow-covered pea. She brushes her teeth with a comb made from tiny hands in a land she thinks is less free than her own. Unfettered, of course, by the fact her self-indulgent opulence equals their oppression. She adorns her hair in whataboutism and anoints her tongue in white feminist rhetoric. She, the main beneficiary of supposed council culture, mourns a lack of civility as hands caked in blood from doing the work of white men touches the banister. She descends into her kitchen. A husband who believes like her is not here. Children who she raises to believe like her greet her not, as a figure moves, unseen to her colorblind eyes, for her eyes only see her white children. Her children who will wax poetic on how Black women were forced to give them milk from their breasts. Her children who will then sit in Senate seats and pass legislation to attempt to keep the mother of humanity enslaved. Because to them, being of service to the realities of white men should be joyful work. She then walks out on the porch, staring out over what she believes is her land. Land that, if you were to look close enough, glistens red in the luminous teardrops spilled by the sun. And if you listen, you can hear the calls of enslaved Black people as they tend to the blood-soaked fields. She rocks back and forth, time melding, determined not to be her ancestors, but being her ancestors all the same. And she hears the cries of a woman her husband takes by force. She hears his threats, and she feels something stir. If you were to assume pity, you would be wrong. Born of her jealousy, it is akin to guilt. But even that seeps away too quickly to be replaced by rage. Because to her, even in the pain of Black women, she must be the victim. And the white woman clutches in her hand a fan, waving it back and forth as if it were to dispel the horrors of her people. And the sun screams against her skin, burning it, a punishment for her hubris, and she sighs, rising from her chair, accosted by the chants and the wails and the cries for justice, demanding they be a little less loud, a little less mouthy, a little less antagonistic, a little more civil to her. For she thinks, as she spits to the air, that none of this is her fault. So she flees inside of her plantation that takes the form of an apartment or a roadhouse or a shed or a mansion or a castle or a country or a prison in her mind, and she rushes to clutch her white innocence that was never truly there, snatched from her long ago by dead white ancestors. And when she finds she cannot hold it, she screams that she has the right to be supreme because she was once poor, once knew what hungry was, once knew the dread of white men's hands forcing her into compliance. And she turns to the shadow that moves about her home, never truly seeing who the shadow is, but believes she has the right to the shadow's benefits all the same. She reaches out for her medicine. Gobbling complacency and complicity, she drinks it down with white victimhood. She goes to work, advocating only for herself, believing her world is the only one worth advocating for, lamenting how she lacks the capacity to do anything else. She complains that the shadow is too loud as she goes about her business. She whispers a slur under her breath, and when the shadow turns towards her, she smiles, feigning absolution. She then turns on the television, to the news station that caters to her pathology, proclaiming she isn't that bad for saying all lives matter, for voting people into Congress who wish to enslave the masses, for saying blue lives matter, for calling the police on her delusions but ending the lives of Black people, for lying about the little boy whistling at her, for the blood on her hands, for the privilege she inherited, for the privilege she enjoys, for the white hood her father wore, for the white hood her husband wears, for the white hood she wears but calls it devil's advocate, for not using the N-word but perpetuating systems of oppression all the same, for always centering herself, for being nice but not good, for the reparations she feels that is too hard to pay, for the reparations that if she were honest is simply inconvenient for her to pay, for the systems that benefit her but she says benefits non-white people, for white mediocrity, for genocide and slavery and an opulence that reeks of death. And she says to herself as she holds her pearls in her palm, "See, I am not that bad." And then she rises from the couch, unencumbered by the presence of the figure whom she deems a shadow. And she smiles to herself and ascends the steps, bathing in white supremacy, believing its chill is warmth. And she smiles to herself, looking at her high ceilings as if they mean anything, as if the blood of Black indigenous peoples were not the glue holding its bricks together. And even if she did, she would smile again anyway. For to her, what are their deaths to the ignorance she feigns? And she smiles to herself. And the day proceeds. And at night, her husband, smelling of patriarchy, lays on top of her and dictates to her what a woman is. She does not fret or move, for while she speaks of women's lib, she believes herself a cage. She believes her womanhood a prison. She believes her home an encasement. Because they have defined who she was for so long, she cannot imagine her life without them. For who is she without white supremacy, or the oppression she perpetuates, or the nooses she holds which masquerades as bootstraps? Who is she without her white womanhood to envision the reality of the home her compliance and complacency built? And when he is done, she crawls from bed, smiling even as she weeps. And she passes by a room where lies a figure, whom she in her ignorance called a shadow, who was never a shadow, who is a Black woman, who has her own dreams and realities and pain, and yet the white woman, because she does not see color, doesn't think the Black woman's sorrow is worth considering. Because if whiteness knows anything, it is that it feels it should be the center in everything. And she goes into the kitchen and she pours herself a coffee and she laughs, proclaiming, "Oh, how joyous it is to be a white woman with high ceilings and the promise of the American dream." That's that on that.
Yes. 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 Give it up for Dane Figueroa and Edidi. If you haven't already, make sure you give it up for Dane Figueroa and Edidi. Yes. 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 I really, what I'm struck most by, or what I was struck most by, is I mean, the imagery of that man was one whole part that I was really struck by, but two, the piece around, right. So again, we're kind of
Oh,
in
wait,
this
your
place.
camera froze for a second. Would you say it again?
If, but did I freeze cute? Did I freeze cute?
You froze cute. You froze cute.
As long as I froze cute, it don't matter. It's cool. It's cool. It's the, you got to get your Zoom face. We talked about the Zoom face before, you know. But but yeah, like there's this place of this feigned ignorance, right? That I think a lot of us end up dealing with again when we're gaslit so much, or these conversations in which people are like, oh, you're starting a conversation. It's like, how is it 2020 and I'm starting a conversation with anyone on race? Like, I can't be, right? Like, it's actually not possible, right? Like, you would have had to literally been on a rock, and that rock would have had to been buried in the sea, and that sea
Right.
would have had to been undiscovered, right? Like that. Literally, the absurdities that we're talking about, right? And so, just this place in which people want to, especially like white folks, yeah, you said this place around, oh, she grew up poor, she grew up this. Like we hear this again and again and again. I can't be this because I'm this, right? I can't be racist because I'm this. I can't be invested in white supremacy because I'm this, right? You know, and we like even looking at all the, looking at articles, even the last couple of days, which is something that we all already knew, but was confirmed, right, through data, was how many white queer people are going to vote for Trump, like in this upcoming election, right? So just even knowing, like that's outside of outside of queerness, right? Like if queerness is the only thing that's tying you to not having all of your power, that means you only have a little bit to chip away, right, to get to of that larger system, to get to what you need, right?
Not understanding that they will never be loved. They will never be loved by the Republican Party. They will never be loved by people like the orange troglodyte in the White House. And that eventually, the camps will come for them too.
Mm-hmm.
Organizations like ICE will come for them too eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Voting against their own fucking interests.
Mm-hmm.
Fools.
Listen.
I don't even want no. You know what? Let me take that back. I'm sorry. Not even fools, right? Because the fool in Shakespeare was actually very wise. They're actually evil.
And that's
Let
the
me
thing,
call
right?
it what it is.
I think people we want to, again, going back to like what does it mean to that sometimes I think in our own understanding of what we experience, we get gaslit so much sometimes as Black folks and brown folks and indigenous folks, but especially as Black folks, that sometimes it's hard to process and be honest about what we're seeing. And we sometimes forget how honestly evil people can be and how invested in evil people can be, right? Because even let's say that, because I would say for some folks, I think it doesn't even matter if that party or if whoever will actually love those people, is that they're so invested in destroying other people, regardless of whether or not they get their power, right? They hope that they get the power, but even if they don't, and they know they'll never get it in this lifetime, they're okay as long as they're destroying you. right? So that's a very different type of motivation that I think many of us can't wrap our minds around. And some people, and I think especially, I have this quote that kind of came up for me from White Folks Be Trippin, that is, and what of the good white people, the ones that separate themselves from the pack, the ones that turn their noses down at the other white people, what happens to them when they realize they are the exact same white people we're always talking about, right? There's this place in which
wait till body's on ballot. See, let me tell y'all something real quick. Don't hold that thought, Mase. Don't you forget it. Y'all listen. So Mase and I just came up with the set today, right? Like literally before we did the tech rehearsal, and we came up with the set today. And like Mase has not heard some of the pieces from the book, and so I literally was like, okay, I'm gonna put this piece with this piece, and then blah blah blah. And it's like what you just said, like it, child. That's how I be knowing when I be like, the spirit is working. Go ahead, bro.
Get it together. But yeah, just this place in which I'll hear lots of, this place in which I'll have white folks try to convince me. It's like, well, they didn't mean this or they didn't mean that. It's like, you really don't know how evil people are. Or you want me to actually like just be forgiving of that, right? That those people that are protecting, that are doing this and finding all these different ways, like it's also a collusion with evil. It's also a collusion with things that are trying to kill people. And so it's actually, I don't have to argue with it. I don't have to actually like engage with it. I actually need to be invested in something that's going to be my survival. And so this image of this person who is willing to, especially when you talked about this woman who's got this man on top of her, this patriarchal pig sweating man. That's what I'm hearing. In my head, he's a cop. That's what I heard in my head. He's a cop, whatever he is, whatever entity he might be, as far as being part of the institution. But that people feel like their suffering means that the other things that they do to harm other people doesn't matter, right? And that's actually just not true. Right. And the level of suffering is relative, Yeah.
I think that as you talk about that, and I know we need to do our next pieces, y'all. We might go till 8 tonight, but I know we gotta do some pieces. But
if people have questions, people can ask questions. I don't know if y'all saw that.
Oh yeah.
The email earlier today. But if you have questions, you can feel free to ask us questions. We like questions. We have like 2. Is it okay if we each read 2 more pieces, y'all? Is that okay?
Let us know.
I know it's a little like folks are like looking at like, is that okay? As if it's going to be pop up. It's not going to because it takes. So we're on. I don't know if we said this, but we're on StreamYard today. So some of y'all are on Facebook watching us on different platforms on Facebook. Some of y'all on YouTube watching us. And so we're just we're waiting for StreamYard to consolidate all the comments before we get to see anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone said it's cool. No. I was gonna say one thing I was thinking about as you were talking, right, is the fact that white supremacy, that the idea of white benevolence, right, is actually a byproduct of white supremacy, and it allows for white supremacy to actually still permeate, perpetuate, etc. So this idea that there are non-racist white people, which I think that some folks perhaps had to try to figure out, and when I say some folks, I mean BIPOC folks, in the 90s, right, as they were trying to get certain legislation passed, trying to like figure out how to talk about racism and how to deal with it and how to try to wake some folks up, right? I think that they framed it sometimes in a way that led to this idea of white benevolence, which within a system that preferences white people, I dare I say that white benevolence cannot exist.
I mean, that's
an illusion.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's this place of And so to me, I just always talk about
but let me say this too. And it doesn't mean, right, white people on the fucking line who listen. It does not mean you do not it does not mean what I'm saying when I say white benevolence does not exist. You still have to do the work of understanding your bias. You still have to fight to dismantle white supremacy. You still have to fight to dismantle white privilege. You still have to pay reparations. You still have to do the work. It don't give you a pass. It don't give you a pass. Just because I said white benevolence doesn't exist, it doesn't give you a pass to keep doing the same shit that you was doing before. And you all know what I'm talking about. Go ahead, Mase. I'm sorry. I just want to say,
and if you don't, you can pick up the infrastructure of a nation. And I think also, like, even like with the tools that we're creating, I think that it's so important that, again, we're not creating stuff like, yeah, I don't think that we're creating stuff to teach white people, right? So we're creating stuff that's about the experiences that we have and about the world in which we live. And I think that the reality is like, one, we're creating tools in which Black and brown folks get to be honest about what we're experiencing again. So I'll say that again. We're teaching to the people that know a lot, so that the hope is that the people that that also, like, if you are someone you're like, I did want to learn something, it's like, you're not going to get it if we keep having a one-on-one conversation. If we keep having a conversation, like, as basic, like, you're not going to learn anything, right? And so it's imperative that people are in rooms in which people have a higher level of theory, right?
You got to do the work. You have to do the work.
Yeah, and I see. Yes. So I'm going to go into this next piece.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and so this is like a little rant I did a little while ago. And so what this is about, so I guess I wrote this last year, the year before, something like that, I'm not sure. But it's called Dealing with White Folks During the Holy Month. Oh, and I'm going to give you another writing exercise. So we're at another place where you're going to get another writing exercise. And so be prepared to respond to this in the comments section of the Facebook or the YouTube, wherever, right? I've spent some time co-running a group for incarcerated trans and queer youth. I started my birthday yesterday by picking up a few supplies before heading to the detention center with a colleague to see off one of our kids who is being released today. He is 12 and closeted. I was tasked with picking up a few things we thought he might enjoy and called my colleague through the process because I was having anxiety about what might be appropriate. We settled on his favorite snacks and a stuffed unicorn. I was worried he wouldn't like it / would feel like it was too kiddie or maybe too gay, but it was adorable. And if he didn't like it, we had the snacks. So as I was mulling this over, having missed Sahur that morning and being without food all day, I was a little foggy, emotional, all the things. Hashtag Ramadan problems. I got to the cash register and the cashier was a white woman I'd never seen before. The store is in my neighborhood and I am there fairly frequently for supplies. She saw the unicorn and remarked how cute it was. I relayed my nervousness about giving a stuffed unicorn to a 12-year-old who was on the cusp of thinking it is either really cool or really ridiculous for his age. She asked a question that had I had some food in my system, I would have answered differently. She asked, "What's the occasion?" In the part of my brain that usually says random white strangers are great at dehumanizing Black and brown children, just lie and be done with your day, I wanted to tell her it's his birthday. But I didn't say that because that part of my brain was severely lacking calories and foresight. So I paused. I long paused. I paused so long that if there was a physical manifestation of that pause, it would be a 5K run for making better decisions. After pausing, I told the truth. "Oh, he is getting out of a detention center." Her response was typical of someone who's gotten to see the justice system humanize them their entire life and quickly says, "I hope he learned his little lesson." A few other parts of my brain lit up and I growled back, "I hope they stop incarcerating children." I took the unicorn, which he loved, and left. It's painful to know the many ways whiteness tries to rob even our kids of joy. So y'all's assignment, if you should choose to accept it, I want you to write or respond to, when have you witnessed moments that Black, brown, indigenous children were robbed of the right to be honored as kids, right? So when have you witnessed moments that Black, brown, or indigenous children were robbed of the very right to be honored as kids? Okay. And so as y'all are writing that, then we could chat. We can kind of go back and forth a little bit. We could chat a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about, oh Lord, being a child, right? And hearing like, don't walk that way, don't wear that because, you know, somebody might be looking at you, right? Somebody might try to snatch you up, right? Um, and like, I was a child, right? Like I was a child, like living my life, wanting to wear shorts, wanting to wear certain things. And there was not, you know what I mean? And how so often, it feels like instead of folks demanding that the world be a better place, be a safer place, be a more affirming place, be a more loving place, be a more truthful place, be a more accountable place, etc., right? Be a less oppressive place. Be a place full of be a place free of oppression. Um, certain adults attempt to certain adults abuse kids to try to prepare them, right? Thinking that they're preparing them for the cruelties of the world.
Yeah. What comes up for me is like, for anyone that reads my work or that knows me in life or like sees me on social media or whatever, people know I don't believe in prisons. I don't believe in jails. That's not something. Yeah, that's not something I believe should exist. And I find myself supporting youth that are going through that experience, right? And so being in this place in which you're watching young people who are being punished for the trauma they're already experiencing. Like I think it's very rare that I'm experiencing a young person who's incarcerated that doesn't have a huge wealth of trauma they've already endured, right? And adults that will like use that that will talk about it as if like this incarceration as a child is somehow easier or is somehow preventing them from doing something later on, or is somehow like a preventative measure of some kind when we know that incarceration at any age does not prevent anything from happening, right? And so I just, because even in the story that I was sharing, there's so many different experiences of having to be calm while talking to and dealing with people who very much believe in that process, as well as people that might be on the outside of those processes, and really think that our children don't have a right to safety or don't have a right to protect themselves or don't have a right to be free of trauma, right? That think that they're supposed to respond as though the system is working well for them, right? Like I have so many, yeah. Oops. Is that
Oh,
Ryan?
hold on, what's going on over there? That's where you are. You gonna take us
Hold
with
on
you?
1 second, y'all. Hold on 1 second.
Somebody cooking something? What's happening?
Oh, it's off. Hell, I don't know what that was. We
Oh,
sitting
okay.
here. I'm in Texas. Hell, what was that? Yeah, I don't know what that was. So y'all, I'm in Texas. I'm in a place where I'm not typically, so I apologize for the loudness of that. Y'all gonna see me walking through
Y'all
here.
all right now?
Yeah, no, we're okay. Okay, no worries.
Okay.
Okay, everything is fine.
Okay,
So we're in a
good, good,
place
good,
I'm not
good.
with. Whew. Okay. Um,
Um,
but yeah, I see someone
I
who's
was
coming
gonna
from
say,
India. Mm,
that like there's a group of people, right, who treat trauma like it's a rite of passage,
right, right. But
you
not for
know,
everyone.
and
Not
it's
for
like,
everyone.
But right.
Not for everybody.
Right. Right. So uh, um yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. Yes, we have a few things. So someone commenting. Yeah. So Venus is like, I thought it was my house for a
Do
second.
we what we should do? Should we do a trigger warning?
Yeah. So some trigger warnings. So some trigger warnings. So Kathy talking about the experience of young people that saw their father. So trigger warning, real quick, about police violence. So young people that saw their their father or mothers being killed by police, right? So like, which there was never a reason for, like there's never a
Right.
justification for that. Um, I was laughing really quickly at Venus, who thought that the alarm was in her house or in Zer's house. Like I thought, I thought it was in Dane's house. Actually, I was like, where's this mysterious sound coming from? It can't be where I am. Dane and I, whenever we're on the phone.
No, if it was at my house, child, you would have seen me be like, mm.
Because whenever
on.
I have an issue with the phone, I'm always like, Dane, what's wrong with your phone? I'm quick to blame someone else's technology versus mine. I'm like, it's never me. It's never my technology. This is Verizon. This is great. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Nappy-headed jojoba. I feel that so many Black girls experience what Lady Dane describes. Yeah, complete with and so I think that I think a lot of girls experience that. I think also a lot of visibly queer young people experience that, regardless of where they're on the spectrum. A lot of times too, that there's something about being perceived as visibly queer as a young person that you get blamed for it. You get told that it's not real, but you also get the sexualization of other people and of adults onto you that perceive that queerness in and of itself as an invitation to be sexualized, right? And usually have no place to tell or talk about that with, talk to other people with, right? Because then you're dealing with homophobic and transphobic adults around you too, that are both the ones that are coming at you sexually, as well as the people that are around you that are telling you you're not supposed to be queer. It's actually your fault that you're queer, and that these people are interacting with you in a certain type of way. So most definitely, yeah. So all that. So Dana,
right. It's like we gotta have a world. We gotta have a world where the babies can be protected, child.
yeah.
And not just can be, but are, right? Are protected.
Are protected. I'm laughing a little bit at Iden saying, I love you two together, like a grandpa and grandma dropping these bombs. Iden, how old are you? Okay. I thought you was older than me. You ain't gonna be calling me nobody's grandpa right now. Let me tell you that right now. Okay. I ain't nobody's grandpa. Yo, I'm struggling with this idea of being an elder. Like I think in trans community, I'm coming up on my elderhood. Like I think that's just what it is.
Grandmothers can be amazing. My grandmas were amazing.
That's great.
Are amazing, I should say.
My grandmothers were amazing. They're wonderful people, very spiritual people, very connected to the ancestors, to the worlds, to the roots. I'm not there yet. Okay, so like I am not. Like, does this look like the face of a grandfather? What are we saying here? What are we saying? Danny, Didi, I'm looking at the time. I know that we initially wanted this to be an hour and a half.
Okay.
Do we want to? How would we like to move forward? Do we want to do one more piece each and then move on?
Yeah, I was gonna do two more. I have a short one, and then I have bodies on ballots. How do y'all feel? It's almost 7:30. Is it cool if we have three more pieces? I'm gonna do two. Mase gonna do one more. How y'all feel about that? Can you respond to us?
Where's your energy level? And thank y'all for filling out that prompt. I think again, for me, as we kind of do this work, like I think that's I don't think either of us write just to hear ourselves talk. Like that's not our jam in the world. We write, we spit, we workshop in community with other people.
You said we don't just write to hear ourselves talk.
We've all been in rooms like that. Okay, so we got.
Okay.
Please, yes. Okay, so Dane, the if you would like to read your pieces.
Uh-huh.
Do you want your short one and your long one right now, or do you want to read short and then piece and then?
No, I'm gonna read my short one, then you do your last one, and then I do bodies on ballots. I think I can close out with ballots on ballots because we all talk about, yeah.
Then
So I'll say, huh?
I had a thought about. I don't know what my last piece is going to be, but I'll think about it while you're doing this.
Got you. So I was work. Venus said, "This y'all show." Thank y'all. Y'all awesome. So listen. Something came to me this summer. A phrase came to me this summer, and it was, our sorrow is not more sacred than our joy. And something about that filled me with sweetness and with like the permission, right, to like to feel joy without guilt, right? To feel joy without feeling like somehow I'm betraying, the Black community by feeling joy at a certain moment because of everything that's happening in the world. And based off of that phrase, this piece came to me. It's called, I Just Drank Something Sweet. My computer shady. She froze. My computer froze.
I can still see you.
Okay, I think it's working now. Got you. I'm good. I just drank something sweet. I just drank something sweet, something with hope, something with promise. I drank this thing because I'm fighting to remember the good of life and not drown in the bitter. I'm fighting to know what it means to drink tears that don't always taste of salt, struggling to remember crabs don't belong in barrels. I've been struggling with sorrow, her grip telling me my misery has become too commonplace. A house that was built by other hands but demands we occupy it all the same. And I pour out laughter in the air, hoping a garden of joy will grow, praying that something sweet don't turn to vinegar because I'm fighting for something beyond this pain, something that will remind me that my smile doesn't have to be a masquerade, that the crescent moon of my lips can be a truth that invokes revolutions. I want to sing, to dance, to shout, I will drink something sweet, something full, something righteous, and I will fight. Because the sun sang warmth on my skin, and I remember the spinning of webs in homage to a memory of salvation, and I laugh, vernacular needle and multiversal thread. My grandmother wove the sun for me. Embrace its golden light in your net. Bring it back to me. I, your daughter, plead with my tears. Lament, carrying the moon in my womb, adorn the day and night as my flesh. Where is the honey, mother, that will sweeten this all? The world, is it dying? Is this the first time? The world, is it ending, or is it just another empire falling to rubble by way of tyrant's hand or patriarchy's violence? White supremacy laughs at the world's pain, and I claw at oppression's eyes, and I will spit on white supremacy's grave. And I worship the old gods and celebrate the ancestors, for they have given us the route to freedom, have cultivated the pathways to liberation long before I took shape in this world again. There are waters in the giggles, birthing in the joy. There are memories in the wind, milk from the earth. The lightning strikes, the knowing is not dead, risen again, born, birthed in memory, living on. Black they are, my smile whispers. Place the sea of happiness to my lips. For our sorrow is not more sacred than our joy. Drinking something sweet, I lay my head on the lap of gods, and they tell me, rest is holy, daughter, holding that which was not fractured. Tonight, adorn the veil of dreams, for tomorrow is another day where the sword will dance with the pen. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, I like this idea of just again, sacredness of joy, and just like my sorrow not being more sacred than my joy. I do think we all get sometimes it's so hard to hold both, right? So sometimes it's so hard to. It's one thing to look at other people as being plainer, like that's something we know that often happens, you know. But we sometimes are not honest with ourselves about the ways that we don't allow ourselves to feel our full range of emotions. I think that especially in
Right.
these times, we chastise ourselves for sometimes experiencing joy in the midst of so much pain, in the midst of so much trauma.
Yeah.
If the goal, right, is for us to never have happiness, right? That's actually part of liberation. We have to, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And you know, you wrote something maybe 2 weeks ago, last week after we spoke, on your Instagram that really touched me because you were saying like no one owes you. Uh, you said people don't. You said no one owes you public displays of grieving or something like that. I don't know what exactly you wrote,
something like that.
but but it was something that like at the time I really needed to hear that because um I think that like I think that my partner, I think that some of my family uh are have been in spaces with me where I'm grieving, right? Where I am, you know, pulling, what they say, gnashing of teeth, pulling of the hair, right, and lamenting, right? And I think that sometimes, and not that there's anything wrong with people publicly grieving, I'm not saying that, but I think that like sometimes I don't necessarily want to do that on my Instagram.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Or make a video of me crying or any of, you know what I'm saying? And so like that, what you had written was it was something that I had needed, particularly given what was happening in our lives at that moment. So yeah,
I appreciate
thank
that.
you.
Thank you, love. Um, I'm sitting here and I'm trying to, as we're kind of closing up, and I'm shifting what I would have read, you know, at this point. I think I'm trying to decide. I think I've decided what I'm going to read. Um, if I can find it, where can I find it? Where can I find it, y'all? What page? Huh. Huh. So I would like to write about or share. Let's share MLK. Where is it? Scott thoughts progressive. Okay, so we're going to play a game, and that game is I'm going to give you an assignment while I'm looking for a thing. so, um, um, and so what I would like you to do is I want you to think about. Oh wait, no, I found it. I found it, y'all. I found it. What the fuck did I name this in the table of contents that I couldn't find it before? Yeah, so I found it. So we're gonna do this poem. I'm gonna give you an assignment, and we'll kind of go from there. I don't know what's not here. Okay. So this is a poem called "The Nonviolent Zombie Apocalypse," aka Jesus, MLK, and a zombie walk into a bar. Okay, so I'm hoping you like this poem, and if you don't like this poem, it's okay. There are other poems and rants in the book. Okay, so it's okay. There's tons and tons and tons of poems in the book. All right. There are at least 4 facts about Jesus and Martin Luther King Jr. that I know to be very true. 1, they are both deeply committed to nonviolent resistance. 2, they were both killed for their public resistance to the state. 3, they are both clearly zombies. 4, I will always be attacked for number 3. Logged evidence number 1. Jesus lay dead in a tomb for 3 days and rose triumphantly from his gravesite to spread his message of forever lasting life, famous for saying things like, turn the other cheek. Logged evidence number 2. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot through the right cheek and down through the spinal cord on April 4th, 1968, yet somehow, despite the death of his physical body, he still keeps speaking. Only these days, he seems to only speak through white people that conjure him up anytime I start to sound a little too angry about police or prisons or the wealth gap, also known as racism. They make his mouth move in directions a dead body shouldn't be accustomed to, yet he is always forming new opinions. With statements like, Martin Luther King would disagree. King would have thought you should have been nicer. King would want you to stay nonviolent. For some reason, his transition has made him speak in third person. Curious. Our ancestor, known in this life for his dedication to Black liberation, has somehow become the servant to white people's dreams. The rotting of his flesh seems to make him even more attractive to white supremacist puppeteers, wanting me to really hone in on the message. See, I was told once that zombies were a warning tale among slaves that even if you were to escape the cursed life of slavehood through death, your master may still have dominion over your soul and your body is still forced to do his bidding. I remember these stories. Whenever I hear someone holding up my dead ancestor's mouth and propping him up to speak, it is a warning that says, here is your leader. He says when we want him to now, careful, the same thing doesn't happen to you. Stop using dead Black bodies against the living and calling that shit nonviolent. My liberation is not in the past. Many of us are still waiting for freedom, and I don't want my goal to be dead by 39. Know this. The same people who want to placate you around the death of your fallen are the same as the people that would gladly dance on your grave. I am not waiting for my enemy to reveal itself. It is already dancing with my ancestors' bones in the streets and will be broadcast on tonight's evening news as I watch more Black activists being beaten with the memory of ancestor forced into zombiehood by the same system, waiting for us all to die so they can tell the world what they really wanted us to say and then leave our descendants left to wonder who was really fighting for them anyway.
I love when you do that piece. I love when you do that piece.
Thank you, love.
It's so good. And it's so true, right? Like how many times have we've been at a panel or we've been in conversation with or we've been interviewed by and we're like, you know, right. And they're like, oh, but you know, Dr. King said nonviolence. Oh, but you know, Dr. King said, and it's like, but did y'all read all his work or did you just, you're just cherry picking? And then they love to tout out Jesus. They love to, tout Jesus, even though Jesus went into the motherfucking temple and turned them motherfucking tables over. He said, fuck all of this, turned them tables over.
Yes. Listen. Exactly. I'm laughing at I'm over here saying you come up with some names for these poems. Listen, if anyone has a job offering, I told Dane this before. Dane thinks I'm joking, okay? If there's a job out there, y'all let me know. If there's a job just to title things, I just want to title things. Like, I think that I could survive a long time just titling things. Just let me title things, okay? Yes. And Venus, thank you so much. I'm glad that what'd you say, Dan?
Love you. No, I was saying, Venus, I miss you too. Love you.
Yes. Thank you, Venus. This is just, listen.
So, have we reached that time, Mase?
I think
for the last poem.
we have unfortunately reached the time of the last poem. So I just want to say to everyone who's watching and everyone who has stuck with us throughout this entire time, who's dealt with our alarms, who's dealt with us going through a set list that we just decided to do, literally moments before this very broadcast. Yeah, you can feel free to ask a question in the chat. Please also, like we said, please check out our books and stuff like that. I've been putting up our banners with our social media stuff so people can follow. This is for our Instagrams. I'm more invested in Instagram. Dane is also, and yeah, you can also follow Dane at the Lady Dane on Twitter in the world. So please do that. Uh, but yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. Yeah. So
what was I gonna say? So I was okay. So I was commissioned um, to be a part of an event called "Whose Vote Is It Anyway?" The 19th. "Whose Vote Is It Anyway?" by Baltimore Center Stage. Uh, so they commissioned me to write a piece about just reflecting on voting and the suffragettes, right? And so let me just say this. Um, I am not the type of person who is going to who gets on my social media and like um shames people for voting or not for voting. Um I am someone who will you know say that people who vote for the orange troglodyte are evil. I am someone who will do that. But I typically am not, one of those people who gonna be like, y'all is for not, y'all is for is, right? Like I'm just not going to do that. And before anybody be like, oh Lord, yes, I vote. Yes, I'm going to vote in this presidential election. Yes, I understand what's at stake. I also would like to invite everyone to understand that Black trans people, Black, Brown, Indigenous trans people, was sounding these alarms long before 2016. I would like to be very clear with everyone that what is needed now also goes beyond voting. So do not, if you're the type of person who's like, I'm going to vote because I care about other people, that's cute, boo. Yes, do that. And also, while you're there, after the vote is done, I'm going to need for you to do some more work. I'm going to also need for you to still be committed to dismantling white supremacy. Because it is ridiculous that every motherfucking 4 years that folks got to be subjected to, folks who will literally have been victimized and oppressed and beat up by the system, have to hear those who are just starting to get scared about losing their liberty talk about it. There's work to do that goes beyond just voting. So yes, go ahead and vote. Go ahead and do that. That's what you want to do. That's how you do it. But I'm gonna need for you to also come with some action items about how you're planning on dismantling white supremacy. Thank you so much. Mase, what were you gonna say? I think I interrupted you.
I was gonna say, like, people also like, so even before you get your like around that voting piece, and people actually believe in voting because yeah. So I think that's a whole other piece around like where we kind of fall on the voting stuff. Um, yeah, for folks who either believe in voting, if you only believe in voting on November 3rd, like actually you missed the point, right? So that's there's actually a lot of stuff that go into voting before the actual voting day comes up because there's so many different things and so much antagonism happening. I personally, I'll be honest with you, I don't necessarily believe in voting in federal elections. Like that's where I'm at. And I know, like Dane, I'm going to be voting because I don't think voting hurts. So I'm going to vote because I promised my mommy I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote. Yeah, I do, regardless of how I feel about voting, I do believe in the autonomy of Black people. And because I believe in the autonomy of Black people, I do know that I want to support my community doing whatever they need to feel safe, feel cared for, to feel listened to. And so that means for me as someone trains in safety things, like I know I'm thinking about what can I do to support people, because I do know that whether or not I believe in voting, that the people I love and care about who do believe in voting, that their rights to be safe are in question right now, and I want to do what I can do to protect them on the day of, as well as before that actual day. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at.
And also just make sure if for people who like, are like, woo, voting, I'm gonna need for y'all to also not just be talking about the president. I need for y'all to also be talking about your local elections as well. Because you need to also flip the Senate. Because let me tell you something, that evil person who is the leader of the GOP, at the end of the day, he is betting on the courts to protect his power and the power of his little group of people. He don't care about them poor white people. He don't care about them either. So they about to be a child. Let me not say that. So I will just say this. That it's not, if you are someone who believe in voting, it's not enough for you just to talk about the presidential election. You also have to create the type of, if you believe in this, the type of Congress where you can get shit passed. We see what the fuck they just did for these past 4 years when they had 3 motherfucking sections of the fucking Congress.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying, right? That's like, I'm gonna need for folks, and also like this antagonism. No, let me stop. Okay, I'm gonna go on. I'm gonna just read, because like I just be seeing people just be talking about non-voters in a way that just, I'd be like, y'all, we are all a community, and some people are trying to do the best that they can to help protect each other. And there are people who are on the ground right now who have literally been keeping our community safe.
Exactly.
That I watch people like attack because they say they don't want to vote, and I'm like, y'all, like, so yes, both Mase and I are going to vote, and I will just let me just
feel. Listen, and that's a whole other thing. So I'm like, I'm mad about it. I'm gonna vote, and I'm mad about it. Okay, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah, like I'm gonna do that shit. I'm gonna be like, go there, and I'm gonna like throw my ballot, and I'm gonna be like, fuck all that shit, and I'm still gonna vote.
Because I don't. Yeah, that's whatever. Anyway, Dane's reading a poem. Coming up to the stage again, we have Lady Dane Figueroa, Edidi.
So, okay, let me say this. This piece is called Bodies on Ballots. This is the abridged version. In the book, there's also the unabridged version, which is a little bit different, way longer. So I will, and there's also a video on YouTube of me reading this for that evening at Baltimore Center Stage. Shout out to Baltimore Center Stage. Hey, boo. Here we go. Bodies on ballots. What will you do for me when I have used my limbs in service of your vote? What will you do for me the day after, and the day after, and the day after that, and the day after that, and the days after that, and the days after them, and now what? What will you do for me now? You expect for me to write a love ballad to the system, sing a song of freedom that ain't ever come, rewriting memory until all we have is forget. While the country forgets, riots and repeats, forgets, riots and repeats, forgets, riots and repeats, forgets, riots and repeats, dancing to the beat of white guilt that still centers the illusion of who you think you are. A country that seems to forget but never seems to regret. Because reparations seem inconvenient to the myth of white benevolence. A broken record on an axis that has spun away from so many dreams. And I tell you that I cannot praise it. I cannot love a lover who does not love me. I cannot celebrate it, for my engagement with it has always been one at the threat of extinction. So you tell me, what will you do for me when the sun has risen on the day after? What will you do for me when all of this is done? Tell me. What will you do for me when I am demanding of what I'm demanding of you is to do more than put bodies on ballots? To love me beyond our common enemy, to understand that I am beyond your desire for yourself. What will you do for me the day after? Tell me. Go, vote now. Time is of the essence. Go do it now. Vote. Time is of the essence. Go now. Vote now. Time is of the essence. Yes, but watch what happens after I try to scoop my tears back into my eyes using my hands that tremble with fear, hands that can't hold them, hands that cling together, praying that maybe this time you will love me beyond what I can do for you. What can you do for me beyond thinking of yourself? Yes, there go, vote. Yes, now. Fear is the only thing that the country has given some of us. An umbilical cord around the throats of a new nation. Terrorism, its doctrine. Genocide, its delivery room. Violence threatening to hang them at any time. I wail, lament, crying for freedom, crying beyond it to liberation, to sever the shackles of oppression. There are bodies on ballots, limbs, lips, hips, wombs, tears, black bodies, indigenous bodies, immigrant bodies, women bodies on these paper tariffs. Blood spilling like ink from trees, seeping into the streets, flames sticky with memory while the country attempts to forget. If I join you in voting, will you join me in this fight? If I join you in voting, will you still know there is more to do, or will you think you've done enough? If I join you in voting, how will you love me beyond a ballot that is cast to save yourself? Will you demand oppression die? Will you demand white supremacy cease? Will you demand a better world beyond systems and commemorative gestures? Voting as harm reduction, that's what you say. Voting as harm reduction, that's what you tell me. Voting as harm reduction forgets, riots, and repeats. Will you join me in ending white supremacy and dancing an offering of thanksgiving to black gods on racism's grave? Imperialism won't save us. Or will you, after I have cast my vote, cast me out? Fine. If you have learned your lessons, then let us walk to the ballot box together. But do not be angry if your betrayal causes me to burn this all into ceasing to be. What is your commitment to me beyond the commitment to yourself? Will you still tell me my voice matters when the vote is done? And the police beat the bodies of my people, and the government tells us crumbs are better than feasts. When the laments of our mothers and wails of our fathers are called radical and too inconvenient to honor, when war pays no heed to civility and wields the sword of violence and greed, when black trans bodies lay discarded in streets and the blood of our siblings scream against our tormentors, will it, tell me, will you think what I want is worthy of your attention then? Will my vote still matter when I cry freedom? When I rage against rape? When I desire to pull down the illusion of democracy and raise up the truth of liberation? Will it? Will it matter when I call your white families into account and demand you leave them to rot? There are bodies on ballots. Yes, there you go, vote now. Forgets riots and repeats voting as harm reduction. That's what you tell me. But tell me, will you love me the day after? Or will you be angry with me when I remind you just what you said? You call me righteous as I demand we get rid of a tyrant. So I must ask, what will you do for me when my tears have not dried and I'm still weeping? Because the tyrant is also you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen. Yes. So again, y'all can pick up Infrastructure of a Nation on Lady Dane Figueroa's website, which is ladydanefe.com. You could pick up White Folks Trippin. What'd you say? What'd you say?
I said, hey, hey,
That's
hey.
your dance. Hey, yes. You can pick up White Folks Be Trippin, which is an ethnography through poetry prose at www.jmase3rd.com. So jmace.com. You can follow us both on the Instagram and the Facebook. Yeah, thank y'all so much. Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all so
Thank
much.
y'all.
Thank you to Aiden. Thank you to Mars. Thank you to Kathy. Thank you to Nappy
Thank
Headed.
y'all.
Thank you to Genevieve, to Farah,
Yes.
to Venus. Thank you everybody that's come through. Thank you to Kelly. Thank you to Christopher. Thank you to Alita, to everybody. If I missed your name, it is not from lack of love. Thank you to every single person that has come through and supported us tonight. Thank you to my lovely co-host and author extraordinaire, Lady Dane Figueroa Edidi. Yeah, and y'all can just check us out on the social media, and we know that we'll hopefully see
Yeah,
y'all.
thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thank y'all. Thank y'all so much, Mase. I love you so much. I know that we're going to debrief after this. I'm gonna call you.
Yeah.
And
But don't.
I want to say thank you to what you say.
I said, don't call me. We're gonna be on this because my phone is dead, so we're not doing the phone call.
Got you.
We could do
Okay.
this. Okay. Yes. Yeah,
I
thank
want to
you.
say thank you to everybody who tuned in tonight. And then also, y'all, make sure that you are, if you have the capacity to take care of yourselves, to to do something sweet for yourselves, and to plan. You know what I mean? To plan. Um, have your community, have you a to-go bag. Um, And also know who your community is.
Yeah.
Know who your community is. Um, and know that you are worthy of love and being loved. So thank y'all so much for being with us this evening. We appreciate you.
Most definitely. Have a blessed one, y'all. We'll talk to y'all really soon. Yes.
Take care, y'all.